Hi there, my name is David. Today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be working on the Brother Knitting Machine KH 230. And what we're going to be doing is how to thread your yarn, and also how to do a cast on, and also how to set up your carriage. It's really quite easy, but I was requested to do this, so I thought I would do a little video just on those those aspects of the machine. So let's see how it works on the video. Um, Here is the thread tension yarn, the yarn tension unit, and this is how it looks like when it's threaded. But I'm going to show you step by step how to thread this section of the tension unit. When you take the thread tension unit out of the machine, that when it's packed, this is what it actually looks like. As you can see, it has this wiring piece that goes like this, and basically this is what you do when you pack it, and when you take it out, this is what it looks like. And what you actually do is you've got to actually push the wire tension section up into, and to fit it into this slot here. So basically what you do is you move it up like so. Just take it and you move it up, and you move it up, and you move it up, and that's how the tension unit works. And you move it up, and there what you have is a little box here, and when you move it up so that it fits into the little box. It actually slides in like so. Let me show you again. It actually slides in, and that sets up your yarn unit. When you pack it away, you push that down, and you pull the wire down so that you can pack it easier into the machine. So that's basically how this works. I checked with a number of other KH 230s if they had the same tension unit, and they do. I did see one with a different tension unit that's usually for the standard gauge machines, and that one was for a chunky knitter. But this is the original of what comes in with the machine, and this is actually what it looks like. What you do next is you lift the mast unit up like so. That is the tension mast area. It's just what this actually does is it just helps prevent yarn from tangling, because when you're knitting, sometimes you knit a bit fast, and sometimes the yarn pulls up and it makes a knot. So this prevents it from going into the top section of your unit, and that's basically what this does. So it's actually just a thread guide, and it helps in making sure that you don't put a knot going up into the actual yarn. This is the where the section is where you slot the yarn tension unit into the actual the flat bed of the machine. And basically what you do is you just take this and you insert it in there, and that's how it goes. And that's really quite simple how this unit goes. When you thread your yarn, you push it through the lower part of the tension unit, which is basically this thread guide that you've got here. And basically you insert it into a small hole into the section here, and that's the first part of where you take the yarn and you push it through. What you do now is you thread it through the tension part of the yarn tension unit, and basically what you do is you push it onto the top here, and then you push it down, and then you push around, and that's how you do that section of threading the yarn unit. This is probably the hardest part. Um, this thread tension unit is really interesting because it's actually not adjustable like the standard gauge machines. With the standard gauge machines, you have to adjust the yarn with the tension unit, but this is a tension unit that is self-adjusting, so you don't really have to change anything at all. Sometimes you've got to just kind of put a little bit of a brush in it so you can just check that there's no fibers stuck on the inside. But otherwise, it's a really simple gauge, and it's very easy to use. The last section you do is just to take the wire from the top and you bring it down, and you have this rather small edge here, and this is where you take the yarn and you hook it in like so. Here I had the camera in front of me, so it was just a little bit tricky for me to actually see and position the thread. And that's how you hook it in, and that holds the yarn, as you can see, from the tension unit, and that's the wiring section that you do. And the last bit is what you do is you just tuck it in into this section here. You have a little double wire section in there, and you just tuck it into that section. And that's your yarn tension unit complete. This is a closer view of putting the yarn in, and that's what holds the yarn in position until you use it. I was asked in one of the comments to set up the carriage. The carriage is really easy to do. When you unpack the machine, the carriage is like this, and basically it's got a clip here that holds the carriage down. So when you unpack it, it'll be like this, and basically it's just to be held down with this clip so that it doesn't move around and it doesn't get damaged. So that's the whole purpose of this. What I'm going to do is just to show you how to set up the carriage. It's really quite easy, and it doesn't take much at all. So basically, when you've got the carriage like this, you basically lift the handle like so, and then you undo the clip. This is just a bar just to hold the carriage, as I was saying, to move around. And this is what it looks like. When you pack it back, you do the same thing by putting it into a slot that's on the side here. And that's how you pack it back. And that's just like I say, to hold the carriage when you pack it. What you do next is you move the carriage over to the right hand side. And this is just to position the carriage where you're going to start off when you do your cast-ons and actual knitting. This is the sinker plate, and what you do is you take the sinker plate and you just push it into the area here where you press it in, and you screw it down to the actual section here, and this is your sinker plate that is attached. Your sinker plate is where you take the yarn and you actually insert it into here. This sinker plate is really quite easy because it doesn't have a clip action, so you don't actually need to do anything really complicated with it. So basically what you do is you just take your yarn and you put it into the sinker plate like that. And as you can see, it's quite loose. It's quite loose, and you can take it out really easy. And there's no clip, as you can see, there's no clip action here. And so it's really relatively easy to insert. What I do just to make it a bit easier when you insert the yarn is I take a clip, just a general office clip, and I actually attach it to the yarn like this. So it's like that. And then what I do is I insert the yarn into this section like this. And basically what the clip does is just kind of holds it there. Sometimes you need to use two clips, and sometimes it's just whatever little bit of weight that you got. And this just helps when you start the knitting, and it just makes it easier to handle. What we're going to be doing here is what is called an open edge cast on. Basically, it is the easiest cast on you can do, and basically you select the number of needles that you want to do. Here I'm selecting 40 needles, and this was what I'll be using just to show the cast on. So you select the needles that you need to do, and you put your needles in position. You make sure all your latches are open, and this will be your first section for the cast on. With your carriage, you need to position these levers here onto the end position, which is actually the knit position, because the H stands for holding. So you just make sure that your levers on the carriage are on the actual end position, which is actually your knit position. You then take the yarn and you position it into the carriage, into the sinker plate, and this is where you're going to do your first row of cast on. When you do your first row of cast on, before you do it, the actual instruction manual says that you should put it onto a 6. So basically, you should bring your levers into plain knitting, and you need to make sure your stitch dowel is on 6. And that is actually what you do when you cast your first row of cast on. You now move the carriage over, and that is your first row of cast on. As you can see, this is what the yarn looks like. It looks like a kind of a zigzag, and this is what the first row of your knitting looks like for the cast on. What you're supposed to do next when you do your second row is you're supposed to take what's called a cast on comb and insert it from underneath. And this cast on comb has a long wire that you pull out, and then you put the comb underneath, and then you push the wire across, and then you rest it onto the knitting. This machine didn't get one, so basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to show you another method. If you don't have a cast on comb, there is another method of doing it. So basically what you do is you make sure your latches are open, and basically you take some silk thread, or you can take some string even, and basically what I do is I just push these over the latches like so, and I hold that down. You hold it with your thumb and forefingers, and that's you hold it like that. And basically what you do is you press it down, and then you do your second row of knitting. And that is your second row for knitting. Um, when you've done the second row, you just make sure you have the yarn where you want. I'm going to set mine to 8, to number 8, and basically I'm going to do another more rows. So basically I do about 4 rows. So overall you're doing about 6 rows altogether. And then what you do is you just pull this yarn out, and then you take your weights and you put them onto the knitting. Always make sure the edges are done first. These are your weights. You put them on the edge, and that's your knitting. And then you just knit from there. And that's your open edge cast on. It's really quite simple, and it's really quite easy to do for your knitting. Just make sure for the kind of yarn that you're using. This yarn I changed the dial to 8 because it actually knitted better with a higher number. And you just have to look at the yarn that you're knitting with to see if it's compatible for the machine. It just makes it easier to do a slightly higher stitch sometimes for the yarn you're using. It's just a case of trial and error to figure out how tight or how loose you want the yarn to be. I just wanted to show a closer view of when you put the silk thread or string or something that you put on here where you cover it. This is what you do. You cover it, make sure all your needles are open, all the latches are open, and you just make sure that all the latches are open. And when you insert the string on, or usually there's silk thread that comes with some machines, so you can use that as well, but I'm just using a string of ball, a ball's string that's really inexpensive, so you don't have to use it. You just need to make sure that your machine is not too tight on the stitch dial, and it should work fine. So here you have your string, and then when you knit the second row it should go like that, and then you do your next row, and that's how you do it. Yeah, I'm just going to show you where the end of the string is, and basically when you finish your rows you just pull this out, and that should work. It works better with the silky thread, but I didn't have any for this machine, so I've just used common household ball of string, and that seems to work just fine. It's really quite easy to do an open edge cast on, and then what you do is you just make sure you've got your weights at the edges, and you place it like that, and you do the rest of the weights along that shape. It just determines how many weights you need. For these 40 needles, I only needed 3 weights, but if you're using a lot more needles for your cast on, you're going to need a lot more weights for it. So you can possibly end up using 6 to 8 weights for your knitting. What we're going to do now, we're going to do the Ewrap cast on. Um, Basically what you do is you select an amount of your needles, and basically you cast on the thread in a E way, the letter E. So when you do the letter E, that's where you do your casting thread. The other thing is you must need to make sure that your carriage is to the right of you, so you start off from the right and you move to the left. So this is what you do. Basically you make a loop like this, you put it onto the first needle. What I do is I put a clip on like so, that holds it, and what I do is that is the first letter E, and here's where I do the E, and this is what it looks like when you do the Ewrap. It's really very simple, and it's actually the better one. I highly recommend you do an Ewrap because the quality is much better for the edge, especially when you do ribbing, and this makes it a much better way of doing the knitting. And I find that you can work quite fast if you work in this way. What you can do is I use my finger just underneath here, and I just use that to help me do the Ewrap. And as you can see, it's very simple, and you don't need to work very hard at it. Here I'm just going to show you a close-up of doing the Ewrap. I just put my finger underneath here, and then I do the Ewrap like so. After a while you start getting to be a little bit faster, and I find that's the easiest way in order to do an Ewrap. This is what your Ewrap looks like when you come to the end. You do the last Ewrap at the last needle like so, and you do the Ewrap, and you get the yarn to set up like that. And that's basically how you do the Ewrap for this amount of needles that you've chosen. What you do now is you insert the yarn into the sinker plate like so. You make sure that the position of the levers is on N or knit, and I'm just going to adjust this so that it can knit on 8. I usually adjust this dial for the yarn when I do the cast on. It doesn't the instructions say you should put on 6, but I found you know, depending on the yarn that you've got, you can just put it on the size that you want. Just make sure that this lever is on plain, and then you're ready for knitting. And here we are ready to knit. You move the carriage over. It makes a bit more noise, and it's a little bit more difficult than it is with the open edge cast on. And that's your first row. This is the second row, which is much easier. And you just keep on doing that for about 4 rows. And then what you do is you take your weight and you put it on the edge. And you put it in the middle here. I'm just using three weights here, and then you just continue knitting. And that is your Ewrap cast on. It's actually a much better knit, and I would suggest you do the Ewrap cast on above the open edge cast on. And that's just how much easier it is when you do your knitting. This is the end of the video. I want to say thank you for watching. Please subscribe and leave a comment, and I will be looking at the next project soon, and I hope very much that you enjoyed the video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.